a new year brings new construction, new projects, new ideas, and hopefully shed some light on some things that we think are coming down the line here this year. Today we have no snacks, but we're going to talk a little bit about trends this year. And I know you are working with all of our customers and subs and projects. You have a good pulse of that. And from the marketing side of things, I have a little bit of a pulse of things that we're seeing marketed and changing in the industry. And so the first trend that I think that we've recognized and that we're seeing is this idea of full transparency. And what I mean by full transparency is simply this, is kind of moving away from just contractors kind of keeping everything kind of under the radar in their own corner. But this idea of transparency with customers, with those who are in the process of building, the idea of full transparency from the bids, the pricing, the schedule, even the problems that happen along the project, and then timelines that kind of go throughout it, and working alongside customers and really having that full transparency mindset. It's one that we've always had here at Raeco, but it's one that you're starting to see, I think, in the industry where customers are kind of demanding, and demanding might be a strong word, but expecting this kind of full communication, this full open lines of transparency with everything that goes on in the project. I know our last episode was with Mitch over at Create Design, and even himself talking a little bit about they really value and focus on this idea of communicating everything along the way, every little misstep, things that come up, opportunities. And there's this kind of expectation that I think most of us have, is this full transparency with projects that go on. I don't know if you have anything to mention on that, to dive into it anymore, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. A lot of time, through the intro there, you mentioned the amount of problems that happen on a construction project. And when you tackle that, if you're, open and honest, you could say with the customer, when you tackle those issues together, it leads into a better relationship.
Yes.
So when you have, when you're completely transparent, and I don't know, maybe you're talking about this is specific, but we do, guaranteed maximum pricing.
Yep.
But there's also a contract that's like cost plus.
Mm-hmm.
In some senses, that makes sense. In new construction where we're building for somebody else, we don't necessarily see that works in that relationship very often. But sometimes in the residential developing world, when the developer owns a general contracting, that works better.
Yep.
But specifically for the style of construction that we do, the transparency just around things that are happening on site, especially if it's like an addition versus just completely new construction. The transparency of, this is so specific, but just, hey, we got to have you guys park in a different parking lot. We're having this and that delivered. If we ask them the day before, or 4:00 the day before, that's not being transparent. That's not being a good contractor.
Yep. That
doesn't help them in their day-to-day life. That causes them to have some issues. So being transparent up front with everything. And when you get in front, when you get in front of problems, or when something happens and you start tackling it right away, and you know that it's going to get worse, but you let them know about it, it comes across like you're getting ahead of stuff.
Yep.
And so I think it, being transparent is obviously the only way to go about this, in this business. But,
and I think for so long there was probably some levels where that wasn't always. I'm sure every customer, person who's been on a project probably has a story of a time that they built or had a situation where communication wasn't there, transparency wasn't there, frustrations arise, assumptions arise. And I think the shift that you're seeing a lot in construction is this idea of being fully transparent with everything from the contract, which obviously we've talked about and we've discussed a lot. And Raeco has a stance, like you said, on the fixed rate proposals. But even in that process, we go through every detail of a proposal with a subject or a company or someone who's looking to build, of going, here's why we chose this. This is why this is going to cost a little bit more, because this product is a higher quality. It's going to actually benefit you in the long run, or this is a problem that we see that you're going to have to tackle. And so we're going to have to approach it this way, versus when that is going to be a problem, or that's going to be an issue, but you still low bid it and then come back later, you ruin some of that trust, that accountability, that transparency isn't there. And I just think in today's climate and working with customers who are going to spend a lot of money to build a building, they expect, just like you and I would with a purchase, to have that full transparency up front. And so I think I call it a trend, but I think it's something that's becoming more and more important and more expected, especially those that we've worked with and those that I've worked with. I've had multiple comments with companies I'm working with and given a proposal with, of how appreciative they are that you share all the highs and lows and all the costs, and there's nothing that's hidden, nothing that's kind of, swept under the rug or avoided. They feel like they're getting a full transparent, and they can be fully educated on what's going to take place. Of course, there's no such thing as a perfect construction and no problems. There's always problems, and there's always situations that have to be addressed. And that would come back to, again, just having that stance of communicating, collaborating, walking it through together, and it just makes the whole experience better. And I think that's something that's going to be a big thing this year in 2026 and moving forward. You see it in other industries, and I think I see it a lot in construction.
Well, I mean, it's similar to somebody buying a house. I mean, a lot of the time, the people that we build for, this is the most expensive thing they've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the most expensive thing that they ever will do. There's some people that are, they would say, you could have a $10 million building, a $10 million project, and it's not that big of a deal to them. And there's other people that have a $2 million project, and this is everything to their business.
Yes.
So, being transparent with both of those, and looking at it and saying, what does this mean for you? On when we're in construction, what does this mean for your business? Can you operate still? Can you not operate still? Can we accommodate for that? When you mentioned just walking through everything, that's extremely important to people.
Yes.
This is something that is, like I said earlier, it could make or break them. And this is something that might be an afterthought, but it's important to understand your customer. And something, when you were talking, I was thinking about this, but somewhere that I have seen, I don't want to say a failure in the industry, but when we're talking about being fully transparent, is something that's becoming that you see more often is like an owner's rep, where if you're a business owner, you say, Jeremy, construction, do you want to be an owner's rep and just be the middleman between me and the construction company? I want to make sure I'm not getting screwed here. If you have an owner's rep, there's a large umbrella of things that they handle, and there is a place for them. So, I want to be clear, there's nothing against owner's reps, but if the sole reason is just making sure that you're not getting screwed, you didn't hire the right general contractor. You need to see transparency from who's building your doing your construction. And so I don't know, the more owners reps that you deal with, that's just checking boxes, making sure you're doing the right thing. That's just really unfortunate, because they just didn't hire the right guy, if that's the case.
Yeah, and I would, continue that by, if you are looking to build, looking for a general contractor, I think transparency from the very get-go is important and crucial for a project. And I think it should be something that's talked about up front and very clear, and the contractor should be willing to be transparent through everything. And if they're not, I would be cautious of moving forward with a project.
Well, and we fortunately, we pour our own concrete. We have our own concrete crews. We erect our own steel. We have our own steel crews. And so in that sense, we have, as a general contractor, we're dealing directly with the customer or an owner's rep. And then we also get to see a different view of what, as a subcontractor, we work with other general contractors to help them do construction. And so we see it from both sides of that. And I think we're not someone that's going to look at the plan set and then try to exploit all of the things that are not on the plan set, or like you said earlier, just low bid it and just know. I mean, if we for number's sake say that we are going to pour someone a foundation and we say it's going to be $10,000, but at the end of the project took us $14,000 to do it because we had $4,000 in change orders. 40% of the project of the general contractor's line item is now burnt because we had 40% of our contract came over in change orders. That's not being transparent.
Yeah.
That's not good for anybody, and we're not going to get another project with them. And things happen, design changes, things like that, of course. But if I look at something and notice, oh, they didn't put this and that on there, so I'm not going to price it. And then in 3 weeks, I come back to the PM and say, hey, it's going to be this much more because you didn't tell us that we need that.
And I think that's a tactic that some contractors know that they can low and then make it up on the back end by adding this into there because it wasn't on there and they know. And I would cautious customers and companies that those are things to check and look into. And I think moving forward in this year, I think, customers are going to be more apt to want a full transparency and make sure that that's not happening.
Well, and the reason that I think find such a benefit in design build is because we take the engineering on our shoulders. Yep. So if there is a scope gap, if there is something that's not in the plan set, that's on us.
Yep.
So if the owner goes out and hires a civil engineer, and this would be crazy and would never happen, but say the civil engineer forgets to put rebar in the foundation.
Yeah.
That's just a wild example. But the owner kind of goes as a civil guy and he's like, it's like, dude,
that's
so then he doesn't, subcontractors, the general contractor, the change order goes all the way up. But if we hired the civil guy and they hit us with a change order for something, that's on us. So, I didn't catch that on the reviews or, what have you. So, it's just interesting seeing that from both directions of a general contractor and also a subcontractor.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Well, that's number one. Number two here, going to kind of tie off of number one, but a little bit more focused. I think the second trend is going to be moving towards quality of the product and the project over a low bid. And I know historically, some people want the cheapest possible low bid out there, and that's usually what they're driven by. Obviously, because like you said, if you have a very strict budget and money that you have available for this, you're trying to maximize that the best you can. But I do think that the shift is happening where people want a quality product and they're willing to maybe pay a little bit more to find something that's going to produce and give them what they want for years down the road, not just check the box of it's the cheapest possible. And I've seen that even just recently with customers that they are very much upfront of saying, I understand this is going to cost. I want the best quality product. I want it done right. And the way that you guys would recommend this, and not to cut corners or to try to cut back on this just to get it done. They value the quality. And I think that's going to be something in 2026 that you're going to see more and more customers pushing for maybe quality over that low bid price range.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, again, going back to the design build stuff, I mean, the customer is going to want to make changes throughout the project. I mean, you can say, oh, no, this is it. This is what we're doing.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable that there's going to be changes that are made. And whether it's on the customer end, there's always something that changes. And so with a design build, you're not, I think you're just more willing to handle those than if you're just if you just bid this thing as cheap as possible. Any sort of change at all, if someone changes the receptacle on one of the light fixtures, it's like change order for $100. You're trying to get in there for every dime you can get because you need to make it up somewhere. And so if the general contractor comes in low bid, he's also going to look at the subcontractors to come in to be the low bid. Exactly. It's that you got to make money somewhere. So when you do a design build and say, the design team, like the engineers and the architect, if there's if there's a team established there, if there's a general contractor established, if everyone's working on the project together, you kind of have the ability, you give up the ability to like price check 100 times between different general contractors, but at the same time, you can kind of interview that general contractor and know that you're hiring the right person. And like you said, and a design build isn't more expensive than a hard bid project from like an architect that they list. That's not the case. You can actually get cheaper because of the cost savings on the design. And if you hire the right person, the right general contractor that knows what they're talking about, there's cost savings that you can have on the design of the project. And you can get exactly what you want, and you don't have to put it out for hard bid and go through this wild process of, looking through 6, 7, 8, 9 different bids from general contractors and, hoping that you get what you want, that there isn't a scope gap, that the architect and engineers, acquired the plan set and gathered all the information they should have and put it on there exactly how you wanted it. You could get what you want and still pay a good price for things on the design build. Yeah.
And I think the other part of this, kind of the part B of the quality over a low bid, is also going with contractors like Raeco, where the self-performing is all in-house, from the design to the steel to the concrete. That allows that quality to be at a level that you can expect is going to be the best, because the contractor and then their own crews, their own concrete, their own steel, their own design, are all working together, and they all have a level of standard that they're all being held to. Where if you go to someone who doesn't have any of the self-performing, again, like you said, they're going to sub it out. They're going to look for ways that they can make money on it. And so you're probably not going to get the quality that you would expect, because they're going to maybe try to cut a corner or get a lower price so that they can make more on the project. And then you just don't get the consistency with the quality of concrete, the care and the ability, the steel, and not to mention even the safety aspects in that as well. And I think that's where self-performing is becoming more and more recognized. I think it's a unique thing that Raeco has, that we have with us, is the ability to have the steel and the concrete all under one roof, to really provide that quality and that assurance and that standard that we hold ourselves to. Again, I think it gets harder when you start subbing it out. You would have more experience with that when you're working with subs. It can be more difficult to get maybe the standard that you expect.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, working with subcontractors is probably one of my favorite parts of the job, just because you really get to know these guys throughout the project. Monday morning, it's like, oh, how was such and such last weekend? Did you talk to them so often that you really get to know these people and become your friends, or, whatever. I mean, you need to have a backbone throughout the project, but having the entire structure underground and above ground be put up by the contractor.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, there's not very many times in the project where one subcontractor finishes his work and it's picked up by another subcontractor, where, we pour a foundation and then our steel guys come in and set their column on our foundation. There's not very many times where there's a handoff there. So concrete guys place the anchor bolts. Our steel crew comes and puts their column on the anchor bolts. Other subcontractors don't really pick up another subcontractor's work on a large scale. Of course it happens, but not on a scale like the foundation to the structure. And so whatever mistakes can be had there, as a general contractor, we have to own. And we have quality control things in place to be able to handle those mistakes and try to mitigate that as much as possible. But the relationship that you can have with your own guys in the field versus a subcontractor, of course, like I talked about, you really get to know them. But just being able to make changes, whether it's to save the owner some money, whether it's to help expedite the schedule quite a bit, having the entire structure put up by us has, such a value.
Yeah, I agree.
And Raeco, I will say, Tom, who we both work for, he has a really, really, really high expectation for what we put out there as a product. So if it's not up to snuff, it's redone. And that is that. There's no there's zero. You can't go 1% lower than his expectation. And so when you have self-performing construction and with an owner that expects that much, it's a good product. It
Yeah,
really is.
and that's the piece I think, as customers are looking into this is one of the unique values that Raeco brings to the table is that ability to handle so much under one roof. Definitely the critical pieces that are needed for a structure like that is unique. And I think customers, the more and more that we meet with and give proposals to, is valued a lot. And I think you're going to see more and more of that in 2026.
Well, I think too, I've heard some arguments about, should design builders should they be paid for the drafting services up front? There's a lot of legwork that goes in to, being a design build. I mean, we get a lot of projects that people are interested in doing, and then, it's our job to get them exactly what they want and then put numbers to it and then see if it's test the waters to see, do you want to make changes? Is this a go, or how serious they are? Is this something you're trying to do down the road?
Because at that point, that contract might never come to fruition.
Absolutely. But that's
put the work into it ahead of time.
That's the risk that we kind of take.
For sure.
Is, we build, what someone could say, we build our own stuff. We're not a developer and build our own structures and sell them, but, we have our own customers. And so we really like doing that. And, that's just a risk that we take is something just might not go, or we might get beat out for some reason on something. And that's just the risk that we take as a design build.
And I think it fits into a lot of, which will go into number 3 here perfectly, is that's who we are. It's our process of understanding what you do, what you need, what you're dreaming of, what your hopes are. And then we come back to our team and we craft and put it together to hopefully capitalize or present exactly what you're wanting. And the time that it takes to understand you, to hear you, to capture that vision and that dream, or maybe that's an expansion on a building and you're having these pain problems and they said I couldn't do this and this is what I need. And we take all that, come back with our team and find a way to really maximize that vision you have. And again, like you said, it is a risk because, they may not go with it, or they might decide, I'm not going to do it right now. But we see the value in understanding who you are as a customer, not just another project that we check off a list or just another building to put up. We actually value and get excited. I mean, you could walk our halls and talk to any of our employees in our office, and you get excited about hearing this project, and this is where we're at on this, and this is what we're doing. Like, there's a genuine passion and excitement in our team when we have a project. And I think that's unique, which fits into number 3, the trend of this custom design solution, that this idea of there are so many options and so many things that can be accomplished in this design build, pre-engineered metal buildings, that so many people don't realize that there is a complete custom design. When a customer walks in, we can, I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we can pretty much create anything in your mind that you're dreaming of. Obviously, engineers and architects will have to figure that out. But generally speaking, you walk in, we could create and design anything you can dream up. And that's the piece I think is a lot of people don't realize that. And I think that's becoming more and more understood now of, okay, you guys, you're not just putting up a warehouse building, a box. No, we can create anything and give you the opportunity to really create something that you want, what you need within our team.
I would say most of the time when somebody, it's our job to know construction. It's our job to understand this stuff. It's the customer's job to dream up what is going to service their business the best. And so I would say most of the time, Raeco gives the customer more than they ask for.
Sure.
Or
for sure.
They kind of open Pandora's box to the abilities and the differences and all these things that you can do in construction for what's going to service their building. When, like you said, I think a lot of times people think that, pre-insured metal building is just a large warehouse or something. And that's not it at all. I mean, from office spaces to anything, you can make anything work with a pre-engineered. So,
and I agree. Yeah.
To just hit a home on the fact that most of the time we would, when we send over final drawings to somebody and then you compare them to the first thing that we got,
it far exceeds their
absolutely
initial. Yeah, I agree with you. Every time that I've been a part of it is they come in with usually, and this is part of my passion working at Raeco in marketing is to help educate and give people a bigger perspective of what it means with pre-engineered metal buildings. And so most of the time when you work with a customer in that process, they come in with an idea of like, well, it's going to have to, you guys have to do this, right? This is what it has to look like. And it's quickly, well, no, we could add this here. You thought about this. And we know you talked about a showroom. We could do this whole glass front here. Oh, really? You could do that? Yeah. Well, the outside, I don't want just, metal. Well, we can add stone and we can do stucco and we can do concrete. We can whole different ideas that you can create with that. It begins to kind of open that door where people are now realizing, oh, okay, there's not just this cookie cutter, catalog box that I buy. This can actually be custom designed to fit. And then on top of that, we work with a lot of companies that have existing buildings that need expansions or need a way to connect another building. And that's one thing that, we do really well with is coming in and taking these complex problems or, situations that they find themselves in with a building or a lot or these two buildings here. And we create from this custom this idea of how do we bridge these? How do we add on to this? How do we maximize square footage? How can we get a crane in here? How can we get this flow that I would say most customers kind of come to a dead end where they don't know what to do and come into our team with our team in place to be able to really create this custom solution for them that, again, goes back to your comment, far exceeds whatever they thought they could do or what they were going to be stuck with.
I mean, I don't know if pre-engineered metal buildings is, the topic here, but you could argue that pre-engineered metal buildings are ahead of their time because, you see in residential construction, you see preformed walls being made. You see semis driving down the interstate with the wall of a house formed and nailed together with a number or letter on it that's going to get delivered to a job site, and they just unload it and stand it up.
Yep.
And so that's already what a pre-engineered metal building is, except with structural steel.
Yep.
So,
and I think
there's nothing you can't do with it. We had a customer, they wanted the footprint. They want the footprint to be smaller on the column because they didn't have enough room. We can do that.
Yep.
That's a very, very small example of things that you can change around to make it work. But there's nothing they can't do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the piece is helping. I think, it's becoming more and more recognized and people are beginning to see more and more of the options and the versatility of pre-engineered metal buildings that they hadn't seen before. And a lot of that is, Raeco and the different projects that we've done and different things we've done in the industry expanding and growing and pushing out more and more and people begin to recognize that I think you're going to see more and more of 2026 where people begin to prefer pre-engineered metal buildings and starting to see the value, not only in the design ability, but, the timeline and the speed and some of that could be, shortened up because of that pre-engineered metal building aspect of it, that you could actually get a building quicker and faster put up because of that. And as well as the full custom idea with it. When,
the manufacturers, the dates in which they give you for building deliveries, however many, 12, 16 weeks out or whatever it is on a delivery, you fit that into the construction schedule. So when you go through permitting and you order the steel, it all can flow, where you pour the foundation and the building shows up.
Yeah.
Or while
there's no lag time.
There's no lag time.
It's all in the process, and that's kind of the idea that, helping customers realize, and that's part of the transparency is this timeline is once we get going here, everything's in motion now. Like the steel is getting ordered. Once you approve and we get the design finalized, it's in motion. Foundation and all the dirt work and permits, all that stuff is all going on at the same time.
Yep.
That by the time the steel is manufactured and shipped, everything else has already been laid up, ready to go, and then it hits the ground running. And again, kind of come back to the self-performing is we don't have to wait to try to schedule with a concrete company to come do that, or you got to find a steel crew and schedule them in. It's like we have those in-house and we just are ready to go, hit the ground running right when that stuff is ready. Right. And that's the value that I think a lot of people don't realize, that those benefit the customer in the end because those things are in place within our team. Well, number 4 here, last one as we finish up here, the fourth trend of construction in 2026, and I just simply labeled it relationships. I think we're moving more and more into a day and age where construction is less of a one and done transaction, and it's more of a relationship that's ongoing and continuing to collaborate, work together to build multiple buildings, multiple expansions, fixes, all that kind of stuff, where it becomes kind of what I call, even beyond a relationship, a partnership together. What are your thoughts on that? I know you work more in this than I do.
Yeah, you find more and more that, there's a lot of, like, example, there's a lot of known, larger businesses in Sioux Falls. They kind of have their person that builds their stuff. They don't have to go price check. They don't have to second guess everything because they've done it once. It got done right, and they just can trust somebody.
They've built the trust. They've built the accountability,
they can
transparency.
sleep at night because they know they're not getting screwed or whatever. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, I know someone just called the other day and talked to Tom, and it was like 14 years ago he did something for him. That's really cool to see because it's like you obviously did it right the first time, and then you had a relationship with them. Whatever that looked like, to do something for them again. And it's like, it's fun. I mean, as a project manager through pre-construction, through, construction and completion, I'm on the phone with, I don't think people that build something for the first time realize like how often me and you are going to talk. I mean, it's like
you become my new best friend.
Yes. Like 70% of my day is on the phone. And I don't know how much percent of that is like, is talking to the owner about what they want. And the design build thing, that's just kind of what it has to be, because there's so many decisions to be made. But you gain this relationship, like 2 days ago, I talked to you more than my wife. I mean, that's just what it is when the project gets so busy like that. That's just how it is. And you end up being friends with these people, and it's really cool to see the success of a project turn into the success for their business. Things really, really working for them, and so, we never could have done this if we didn't have this put up so fast, or whatever that may be. But yeah, that's probably my favorite part about this, all the way down subcontractors, owners, whatever it may be. You're at work for more time than you're at home. And when you have relationships that are, good, and you get to look forward to talking to those people, there's a huge benefit in that.
I think it goes back to, for us on our team, the passion, the purpose of what we do is, I truly believe everyone on our team, from the top down, when we take on a project for a business, for a company, for an owner, we're with them on it. We take as much value in it. Obviously, we don't have as much, money into the project that they do, but we take on as much of the burden and the excitement to see this succeed for them. It's a project that we want to see them grow their business, succeed at whatever they're doing, expanding whatever this is, to see them succeed and to see their dream. We use this phrase around our office all the time, taking your dreams to reality. It really is, through every aspect, is we want that person and that customer and that company to fully fulfill what they're set out to do. And anybody who touches part of the project has that excitement to see this thing really come to fruition and get off the ground. And if anyone has ever been around construction, there's an excitement that happens when it gets started, and the project gets going, the dirt work to foundation to the columns being put up and the siding and roof and interior, and you just can feel the momentum and the excitement. And working with a customer, you begin to see their excitement of this investment and this new building that they're going to be able to expand into, and this is going to allow us to do this. There's just that passion that comes, I think, throughout our team, that is unique, I think, to Raeco, with seeing projects really come in the door, understanding what it is they're looking for, what it is they need, what are the solutions that they need for this, and then our team takes it and delivers. And I think because of the repeat business that we have continually is a testament to that relationship that's being developed and the trust that's there, the transparency that's there, the taking care of and guaranteeing that things will be done right. And that's the piece that I think is, like you said, is fun on your side of the thing, but it's also from someone on the marketing side of things is how do we capture that? How do people understand that is something that we do and we take value in?
Well, I mean, something Tom's always taught me is, Jeremy, you're when you're doing a project, we're spending their money.
Yeah.
Whatever. A lot of these projects, because of the industry that we build in most of the time, the project stems from the owner having a good problem where it's like, hey, we're expanding, we need more warehousing space, we bought a business, we have to warehouse their stuff, whatever it is. We need more cranes, whatever. The solution that you pitch to them to solve that problem is spending their money.
Yep.
It's like, if you pitch an expensive option, if you pitch a really, really cheap option, that's on you. You're spending their money. You are trying to solve a problem for them, and you can do that with an expensive mindset, cheap mindset, and whatever, however you want to go about it. But I think it's a testament that Raeco does the right thing.
Yep.
With, like you said, the amount of repeat business we did it right the first time. The solution that we had for them was right the first time. And
we approach the projects, I think every time that I've been a part of proposals is what's going to benefit you, the customer, the best. Mm-hmm. This is going to benefit you and what you do. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily this is going to actually make us more money if you do this. It's what's best for you and what's best for your business and the money that you have. This is going to be what's going to be best for you.
Well, and what we were talking about earlier, like you have to really get to know these people.
Yes.
Like when you're building something for someone, I mean, this is a super sensitive topic for them.
Yeah.
The amount of money they're spending, the amount of time this is going to take for them away from their current business to deal with you and all your questions. You have to really get to know these people. And what comes with that is understanding how their business operates. What does it look like for them? That's really, really important. And to, be someone that is a problem solver and that, you have to wear an owner. You have to be, as a general contractor, you have to be looking out for the customer.
Yes.
Yep. And so you have to have a good relationship around that.
Yeah. No, it's good. Well, these are our 4 trends. Thank you so much for jumping in and giving us some input and some ideas within this. If you want to learn more, please go to raecobuilders.com. Check out our blog, learn more about this. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd love to help you in your next project. Thank you.